The former U.S. Commerce Undersecretary joining us from the Credit Suisse Asian Investor Conference this morning, Grant Aldonas, is with us live. And let's talk about these U.S. trade tensions once again. And now it looks like it's solar panels that we're talking about. But still, we saw a boost in these shares because the tariffs were less than expected. What does this case say to you, I guess? Is there a way to see it in a broader sense?
Sure there is. I think this is another example where, while there are frictions in the relationship, they've largely been contained within the existing processes, Susan, and that's true of this dumping action as well. I think the size of the duties is relatively low, which I think some people are surprised at. But this has always been sort of an ironic case. You have two heavily subsidized industries going at it in the marketplace, and, we're accusing the Chinese of dumping. But under the circumstances, I think the decision was about where it should have been. And ultimately, I don't think it'll have a big impact on the market, as the numbers have already reflected.
Now, Grant, you worked at the Commerce Department as an undersecretary during the Bush administration. I should point out that Obama, in his State of the Union address, saying that his administration has brought more complaints and more trade disputes to the WTO than in previous ones. I assume he's talking about George W. Bush and, the Commerce Department back then. What do you think of these comments, and what do you think about how Obama is dealing with China in a trade way?
Well, what's interesting about it, politics is politics, and so I expect that the president's going to say that because he doesn't have an agenda on trade other than what he has done in terms of enforcement. So it's a campaign year. I understand why he's saying those sorts of things, but in all honesty, I think there's been a much stronger effort in the Bush administration to manage the relationship constructively, and of course it was at a different period. China had just entered the WTO. Whether or not it was going to comply was still a question. But now we've seen some instances like rare earth minerals where China's pursuit of its own goals really has rubbed up against the WTO rules, and I think the Obama administration has been right to take those cases. There certainly is rising frustration with policies like indigenous innovation in China, which do operate against the WTO rules and certainly are inconsistent with managing their stake in the global trading system, and you're starting to see that in the political process in the United States.
Right. Grant, but can you sum it up for me? Are trade relations getting better between the two or worse now during Obama's time in office?
Worse, but largely because of a lack of engagement on the part of the Obama administration. I think there is a vacuum. China's likely to fill that in terms of what we would prefer to see as a trading pattern in the East, the rules that would apply in terms of trade in Asia. And so what you would really like to see is engagement by the United States in trying to develop a constructive relationship, not just with China, but also the kind of rules that would prevail in terms of regional trade, of which the United States and China are both a big part throughout Asia at this point.
Okay, Grant, one more question for you. I know when you were at the Commerce Department, one of your counterparties in China was Bo Xilai, who has been, shall we say, demoted, ousted, some would say, from the high echelons of the Communist Party. Were you surprised by this move, considering how popular, how high-profile he was as a politician in China?
Well, I was surprised, but, it's a funny thing, Susan. Of course, in the United States, we oftentimes make the mistake that beyond the central party, there's no politics in China, and of course there are. And you knew that with the generational shift that there were divisions between groups that were more progressive and groups that were more likely to be trying to reinvigorate the values that were part of the Cultural Revolution in Mao's era. And Bo Xilai certainly represented that. But also, interestingly, a very popular figure in China because he was much more of a populist politician. So this really does, at least from our perspective, I think, mark a change where that process that went from Deng to Jiang Zemin to Zhu Rongji, Wu Yi, and that group of progressives that were interested in China's economic reform and in policies that would shape the global economy constructively, I think have been vindicated by this ultimately. And I think that's overall a good thing for the relationship between the United States and China and a good thing for the world economy. On the other hand, Bo was popular in China. We have yet to see the sort of full effect of what his ouster means.
Yeah. Grant, thank you so much for your insights. It was pretty interesting, and enjoy the rest of your time at the Asian Investment Conference. Grant Aldonas, there, former U.S. Undersecretary for International Trade.